ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hello and welcome to Duran ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. This is Gowri.
Good morning, this is Grace.
And today is Friday, which is the best day of the week, and we're all pretty excited about that because tomorrow is Saturday.
Yes, you remind me of a really peculiar lyrics.
Which is?
After Friday it's Saturday and it's before Sunday.
Oh damn it, I'm just listing all the days in the week. I'm just really excited, Grace. Especially it's been a very long week. A lot of people have been sick. I was sick as well, so I'm just really looking forward to get the 2 days of rest, and hopefully next week will be a lot better for all of us.
And then still a lot of people are in the holiday mood because Chinese New Year yesterday was the 8th day and a lot of people were celebrating. If I'm not mistaken, there was the harvest season peak point of Chinese New Year. So yeah, a lot of things have been going on, and
a lot of people don't know that Chinese New Year actually lasts for like 15 days because on the calendar, of course, it only says you get 2 days off for the public holiday. But it actually is a 15-day celebration because it starts with the Chinese New Year, and then you have the Hokkien New Year, and like you mentioned, there's the Harvest Festival. So a lot of things going on in between as well. And that's why we still hear the fireworks going on every
that
night.
was really crazy last night. Like, it was just one after the other, and
just
then
pom everywhere.
Well, on the other hand, there is a very sort of emergency announcement about the Subang. In Subang, there was a case of the dirty police uniform being stolen. And apparently the government made an announcement saying that please be careful because there will be some people disguise themselves as, like, somebody to check water cabs, or they will visit your houses to promote a campaign to save water, or in whatever it informs. So just be careful. There could be robbery.
Or they could even just come up to you on the street and say, show me your IC, or accuse you of something and say you have to follow me to the station and probably kidnap you or something. Anything can happen when someone actually steal the police outfit. It's actually a very, very serious offense.
It is. To
actually impersonate a police officer. So everyone out there, please be careful and don't just believe someone when they tell you that there are police ask for identification or something, and be very, very careful about that. And let's move on to South Korea, where there's the news about them decriminalizing adultery. And this was decided at the Constitutional Court just last night on Thursday. And they have actually outlawed the statute of adultery, which means that it's now legal.
It is legal. And then this news went very viral on social media. Everyone was really voicing out and even congratulating this country for having no longer, adultery is no longer a crime in South Korea.
I sense a little sarcasm there though, because I think I was one of the people who was congratulating South Korea, not so much because of the adultery itself, but because the justification behind this whole thing is that they don't want to interfere into people's private life. So they feel like if somebody is to commit it, that's absolutely their decision, their problem. It's their private life. They have to deal with it with their spouse, and they don't want the state to intervene and criminalize the whole thing. So in that aspect, I think it's probably okay to congratulate them because they are willing to give people the privacy they need and to make their own decisions.
When it comes to decision making and then respecting private lives, I totally agree with you in this context. But however, imagine you have a friend or neighbor who is like 60 plus years old, and then he cheated on his wife, and then it was just respected as if this is just his private life.
Yeah.
Now, how about what happens to his wife?
Mhm.
And then what are the other punishment, or will there be no punishment at all because it's personal life?
Mhm.
So that sense, in that context, it'll be a bit tricky, and it looks like somebody is playing very smart game in this
Yeah,
situation.
you were actually mentioning earlier that this could also be sort of like a move to protect the ruling elite, because we know that not only probably in South Korea, especially in France, in Italy, in Malaysia, scandals are bound to happen, and especially when it involves someone prominent, you get exposed even more easily, and this could be seen as something to protect them in case they commit it. It's not really against the law anymore, so they're safe. Nothing happens to them.
But then, just to support the idea of respecting privacies, the main reason of this outlawing this adultery is to protect women. And then this was actually stated in the law itself. And the idea was the men who tended to be economically and also socially more powerful, and they took advantage of women. So if a man was charged criminally, that would give women more leverage in the divorce proceedings. So in the simpler words, the wrong wife might get more compensation after deciding to drop the charges.
And it seems that this is actually the 5th time that the court has considered the constitutional legality of which made South Korea one of the very few Muslim countries to regard marital infidelity as a criminal act. And another interesting fact is, as soon as adultery was uncriminalized, guess what happened? The share price of South Korea's biggest condom maker actually surged. And
I'm so sorry, I'm trying to hold my
that's okay, you can laugh. And it seems that Unidas Corp, which makes the condoms, actually the share prices soared up to 15%, according to their daily limit, right after the law was passed.
Wow, that was really fast response, isn't it?
Exactly, and a very interesting response as well. So let's move on back to Malaysia, where we have another scandal happening, not so much of a sexual scandal or anything, more on a monetary scandal, which has been happening for quite some time as well. And this I'm talking about the 1MDB, of course. It's probably like the scandal of the decade, if I may, and a lot of politicians are talking about it, the banks are talking about it, the people are very worried about it as well, because we're talking about billions and billions of money, a lot of money being stored overseas, and it's not in the country. And of course it's an investing firm, but no one really knows where all the money is going. And what's even worse is that our Prime Minister has not really said much about this.
And also, the worst part is when all these monies, most of monies are spent on one's family's wealth. So this has become quite, I will say, controversial and very sensitive. And the one thing for sure about the government is they have never been very transparent when it comes to monetary system. So, of course, the Democratic Action Party leader and the member of parliament for Galang Patha, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Lim Kit Siang, has cancelled on Malaysian's Prime Minister Najib Razak to break his silence regarding the news reported over his family's supposed wealth.
And it seems that his brothers were actually involved in this. Johari Raza, Nizam Raza, Nazim Raza, and Nazir Raza, very similar names.
Yes.
And they have all also issued a joint statement on Tuesday itself, saying that they are extremely concerned about the issue, but they have not said anything about taking the money or making use of it. And this is something that's very tricky when it comes to the Prime Minister itself, because we know even his wife has been saying a lot of scandalous things in the last week regarding the money issue about GST, about her 1,200 ringgit hairdo, which she publicly announced to everyone as well. And it's not putting Najib in a very good position here. And also there have actually been calls to ask Najib to quit his finance post, because right now he's also our finance minister, and this was of course called by the opposition, and it was mentioned by Rafizi Ramli. But what do you think? Is it about time that he quit his finance minister post? Is it time for the Prime Minister to stop holding more than one post at a time?
It is very tricky because, when it comes to the wealth situation, it's very different to talk about, how wealthy the person is. But of course, one holds and also runs the whole country. Definitely that person holds the wealth, but then it depends where all this money come from. The government, the money mainly comes from the taxation,
right?
And then by using all this taxation money for personal purposes, it is wrong. It is wrong, and then people have right. They have right to know about where the money goes and where the money is spent for the country or for the what purpose. But so it is only fair for him to be transparent all this the function of the monetary system to the public, and then if there are things to be apologized, then he has to make apologies publicly. Then there will only be a fair understanding between the public and the Prime Minister.
And it seems that this was as much as Najib is saying that he actually wants to sue the opposition sort of a newsletter called ASEAN Daily, because they were the ones who first revealed the whole thing about 1MDB, and they also brought up the issue about Najib's stepson, saying that, oh, your stepson is involved in this scandal, and he's spending all this money in the US and in America. But it wasn't us who came up with this news. It was the New York Times that was the first one to actually reveal these things to the public.
And that's very embarrassing, Gowri, because they wanted to dig the information, and then they found about this news about Malaysia. How embarrassing is it?
And of course, there was also the article about Joe Lau, who spent a very, very large amount of money in the US because he was representing the Shell company, and he had luxury condominiums, and of course Najib's son himself was linked to a lot of controversies, because he was actually he turned out to be the producer of the award-winning movie The Wolf of Wall Street. Did you know that? He was actually one of the producers.
Oh, actually, I've heard about it. And then he didn't make it to the public too obviously,
right?
Because he has something to do with the government, and it was actually his son who's behind that scene. Yeah.
And it seems that Tony Phua is another person who feels very strongly about 1MDB issues. And there's a lot of mismanaging of funds going on. Like you said earlier, the best way is to come forward, and if you think people have got it wrong, then explain to them. Explain what's has been going on. What have you been doing with the money, and why are all these news surfacing, not just in our country but in the US as well?
I believe this is about the time for the questions to be raised.
That sounded so serious, so scary.
Yes.
So we will take a short break, and when we come back, we will continue with our ASEAN Daily and present more news on Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hello and welcome back to Duran ASEAN. You're with Gowri
and Grace.
And this is the ASEAN Daily, where we bring you news from all over Southeast Asia, as well as some other important news from other parts of the world. And we are going to kick off our second part right now with the French President, François Hollande, who arrives in Manila. And this is for a 2-day state visit to show his support for the campaign against climate change.
And France will host the United Nations Climate Change Conference in December. And Holland earlier said he wanted to reach the agreement and also this comprehensive climate change to pact to replace this 1997 Kyoto Protocol, especially after the failure to reach an accord in Copenhagen in 2009. And in fact, it is quite well known that there was a huge typhoon that happened, which is also called Haiyan, which left more than 6,000 people dead in the Philippines. And the Philippines is also considered among the nation against the climate change.
And apart from Typhoon Haiyan, of course, they also had the super... it's just another name, Typhoon Yolanda. And because of this... President Hollande's state visit is actually considered to be quite historic because it's the first visit of a head of state of France since the diplomatic relations between Philippines and France was established. So this is not just to show his support for the climate change campaign, but also to sort of foster the relationship between Philippines and France, which never really comes up because it's always Philippines and the US whenever there's news in Southeast Asia. And in 2012, the then Prime Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault undertook the first visit by a French head of state to the country, which will make François Hollande actually the second one to go and visit Philippines. And also, after attending the business forum titled The Philippines-France Climate Change and Inclusive Growth, which will be held in Makati, he will also be at the National Museum for an informal greeting by the French Embassy. And the highlight of the day will be the launch of Manila Call to Action for Climate Change. And on Friday, he will be visiting some of the areas that have been hit by the super typhoon Yolanda in 2013.
And he also mentioned that they have duty to act together, and also this is what they need to do to come to Manila to discuss this about this matter, climate change especially. And there was this French actress who appeared in the media as well, apparently, and this happened after the ceremony with the French president, and her name is Marion Cotillard, and she acted in the famous few movies in Hollywood. So yeah, but then back to this topic, which is about the climate change. The goal of this planned the Paris Pact, which must enter into force by 2020, is to limit warming to the 2 degrees Celsius and over pre-industrial revolution levels. And as also scientists, they want that on the current trend, Earth is on the track for double or that more the recipe for the catastrophic droughts or storms like Haiyan and other extreme weather events. So it was already warned, and it's something to be discussed. So by visiting Manila by French government, it is something that it will mark historically.
And also, some people have actually commented on the event, of course. And one comment here actually said that what the country needs are arms and weapons to modernize the AFP so they can go after terrorists and Muslim extremists and armed groups in the region. And that is one way where France can help. And apart from that, François Hollande has also called on to President Aquino III, of course, to speak up and lead the fight against climate change, because of course the visit itself shows that they are actually taking some steps, but if President Aquino is not loud enough and doesn't show how passionate it is, it probably wouldn't quite work out. And Olan also said that we need a voice like President Aquino, and the voice that I heard on the occasion of international summits in the United Nations. And he's actually calling for not only the president himself, but also for all the people to really be committed to the whole effort of climate change, because it's not just about the typhoon. We are facing a lot of problems these days, especially in terms of global warming. It's really, really affecting even us in Malaysia, probably in the whole region as well. And it's time to actually do something about it, come up with alternative sources of energy so we don't sort of misuse what we have right now and increase the global warming, which is also having very bad effects on the North Pole and the South Pole, where the ice is melting. So there's a lot of
and also just a little bit information to your statement that I mentioned about this French actress, right?
Yes.
And then she was included in this group because she has been a long time a campaigner for environment group Greenpeace. And then she read a part of the joint appeal in the ceremony. That's why there was her appearance at the place. And there were pretty a number of trade agreements between the Philippine and the French government during the Holland's visit here on the green sectors, including the transport, renewable energy, water treatment. So those were the main sectors were signed and by Filipino and French corporations.
So hopefully Philippines will be totally committed to their cause and follow through with their actions, and we'll see some changes happening very soon. And moving on to Myanmar, actually, we have the United Nations who have come forth to warn Myanmar on their reform setback. So as we all know, Myanmar is having their elections later this year, and they're trying to reform from a military government to a democratic government. But UN is not feeling very positive about that, and saying that, especially recently when they had lots and lots of rebels fighting, a lot of clashes, that they even had to declare a state of emergency. So with this happening in February, how positive are we that by December they would have the whole system reformed and they are back to democracy?
And that's what the UN is really worried about. Recent development relating to the human rights of minorities, the freedom of expression and the right to peaceful protest are calling into questions the direction that reform and also even the threatening to set it back. So those are the things that because when it comes to transition or reforming something, unless you start from zero or you start from the scratch, it's really hard to change everything at once. Definitely, it needs time. It takes time to settle certain problems and issues, and to be able to resolve them in a proper manner. So that's what the UN is concerned about.
And Myanmar has actually promised to end this whole era of political prisoners, but now it seems that they are creating a new generation by jailing people who actually seek to enjoy the democratic freedom that they have promised. So this is very kind of ironic in a sense, because they promise more freedom, but when people stand up and exercise that right, they go to jail instead. And the ties between the Myanmar and UN rights official have also been of course not so smooth in the last couple of weeks or even months, especially with the clashes that's been happening recently, which you just explained. So can Myanmar head to democracy or not? We still don't know, but UN is not very positive about it.
And at the same time, there are few predictions, such as like during the election year, it will be tempting for some politicians to fan the flames of the prejudice for electoral gain because there will be an unfair treatment or unfair hidden agenda that would behind the elections. And at the same time, but at a time when religious extremism is creating such an havoc in the many parts of the world, these terrible consequences of the appealing to or appeasing such sentiment should be all clear.
And so we'll have to wait and see what happens with Myanmar, especially with all the clashes that's happening now. Hopefully it does get resolved soon enough. And moving on to Indonesia, another controversial country, because just last year Indonesia and Jokowi was everyone's favorite, because he was like the new face, the new hope, the beacon of light, a new start for Indonesia. But now, at this time, Jokowi is no longer the media favorite, and he's been under a lot of scrutiny the last couple of months, ever since he said that he will stick to his death penalty for drug-related crimes. And what we have here is he actually said that he will go ahead and execute the next round of prisoners, a total number of 10 of them, who will be shot to death in a firing squad round.
And then there was this campaign and all those hashtags going on between Australia and Indonesia, but it looks like his decision is very firm, and the decision is already been made by him. That
it
nothing.
It seems like he just switched to a different person or a different personality altogether. Because if you see him last year, he was always pictured smiling and friendly and all, but these days I can actually barely find a photo of him smiling. He just looks really scary all the time, and he's become like this
like dictatorship
almost
feel.
A very intimidating feeling when you look at him these days. And he's, like you mentioned, he's not budging. He's very firm with his decision. But one thing to highlight here is that one of their inmates, who is the Brazilian Rodrigo Goularte, is actually awaiting a second opinion on his mental health, because it seems as of now he is still not quite there, and he's having some disturbance with his mind. And this is something that they are very, very particular about, because if he is also executed with the 10 of them, Indonesia will be seen as violating human rights at the extreme level, because you're killing someone with a mental illness.
So this is really got to do with the human rights in one nation, and it will affect a lot on Indonesia. I mean, this execution plan will be carried on, but then like you mentioned about this one particular person who has this problem with the mental status, if that person will be executed, then in the future, if this Indonesia, the nation, brings an issue about the human rights, they will already set an image.
Exactly. They've already set the bar right there. This is where we stand on human rights and death penalty. So just before we take a break, I want to go through all the countries, the nationalities of all the 10 people. We have a Filipino, we have a French, we have somebody from Ghana, Nigeria, Brazil, Australia, and even one from Indonesia itself. So we are going to take a break now, and when we come back on our ASEAN Daily, we will talk more about ASEAN.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hello and welcome back to Durian ASEAN. This is Gowri.
And you're still with Grace.
And this is the ASEAN Daily, where we bring you news from all over Southeast Asia. And just before we wrap things up this morning, a little hunger and food issue going on in the region. And this is something that needs to be highlighted as well. And it seems that the ASEAN member states are actually doing their best to curb this hunger problem that we are having, because we have this hunger thing happening, we have malnutrition happening, and it seems that approximately 2/3 of the 1 billion people who are hungry are found in Asia.
And Asia definitely has a lot of poorer countries compared to European countries. And then to solve this issue, this is long-term issues that has been going on, and definitely the solution will also require to have a lot of time to overcome this issue. So during the first 21st ASEAN Summit in Cambodia in 2012, the ASEAN declared that the food security in the state, which remains a major challenge for ASEAN and the world as a whole at the time of high commodity price and economic uncertainty.
And another factor that's contributing to this problem is also the increasing food prices, where there's been a spike since 2007. And up until today, the price of food has increased a lot, and that has also affected and contributed to make the hunger and malnutrition problem even worse. And of course, you were also saying that the solution for this has to be long term, because we're looking at people who are hungry.
Yeah.
And something like this, you need to have a sustainable plan, something that can go on for years. And they have the strategic plan of action on food security, which is also called the SPAFS, and they have come up with 6 different angles to address this problem. And what they are looking for right now is cooperation from all the ASEAN countries in order to attain their goal.
And then to be able to cooperate over these issues, they really need to identify it, and that they also need to track back to the root cause of this whole hunger and the malnutrition problems over Asian countries. It doesn't only affect ASEAN, but then Asian continents that in general, it affects the whole area. And this, well, as much as this hunger issue it doesn't look like it's really obvious, but it's been there for longest time actually. So this is something that ASEAN really needs to discuss about.
And also, because our motto this year is one vision, one identity, and one community, they are really looking for all the countries to come together and attain this common goal, especially when it comes to health and nutrition, which is probably the most important aspect. So with that, we are done with our ASEAN Daily for today. And before we see you on Monday, I just want to remind you to follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also we don't have an app yet, but they can always download the TuneIn app and listen to us on their smartphone.
And before that, don't forget to visit us at our website, duyanasian.com, and stay tuned for the next segment.